today, the focus is on the recently released broadband penetration report by NCC, that is the Nigeria Communications Commission. And according to that report, Nigeria's broadband penetration dropped to 41.56% in the month of September, and this is, far away from Nigeria's targets, as as in the National Broadband Plan that says that Nigeria is expected to have as high as 70% broadband penetration by 2025. But I have my guests right with me on the program. I'm joined now by Dr. Aliyu. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on Business Daily today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. But let us begin by hearing your thoughts. I mean, Nigeria is lagging behind in the area of broadband penetration, and this is far away from, our targets. We're lagging behind in our targets that has been set by the National Broadband Plan. But what would you say are the causes of this setback that we are seeing? I mean, we had even recorded, more progress in the past, and we're starting to see a lagging behind for the month of September, well, according to the NCC. But what would you say is the cause of this, and what are the measures needed to correct that now?
Right. Basically, lack of arbitration is the issue of our telecommunications.
We are struggling to hear. We are struggling to hear Dr. Aliyu. Obviously, technical challenges there. But while we try to get that sorted, Doctor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we hear you better now. Please go on with your thoughts.
Right. The challenge of broadband penetration is lack of investment. When you don't invest in infrastructure, it becomes a serious issue. I can tell you clearly, our major problem is lack of investment in our infrastructure. And if there's any sector that's the backbone of Nigeria economy, I think it's NCC, that is Nigeria Communication Commission. So for us to actually achieve our aim, we must adequately continue to invest. And the investment must not come from the federal government only, it must also come from state. Just like what Governor Baseki did in Edo, we expect every state to embark on that, to invest on infrastructure for telecommunication. And also, I find it difficult to understand why we are still having 4 major players in that. I was thinking by now we would have more other telcos that will do business so that there will be competition. I can tell you, I've traveled around the whole state in Nigeria. I can tell you clearly, only one of the networks that we can say have a lot of coverage, or that does not have coverage as expected. So we need to do something actually improve that. If not, we keep on seeing it, and it's affecting our development already. And I can also tell you positively that most of the investments are in urban center. Rural center are not considered in investment facilities.
Well explained. I mean, lack of investment, just like the report to the state. But going back in retrospect, one major concern, well, according to the NCC, was the NIN SIM card verification exercise, which obviously, and also as stated by the NCC, did impact on the numbers at the end of the month. But I would like for you to speak regarding that, how the entire process was handled, and, if this could have been implemented differently.
Right, I think we got it wrong ab initio. At the beginning, there is no way someone will register and we don't have a NIN. national identity management is a bad one in the first place. So for people to now say because of that, I don't think that's the issue. Because if you need to use phone, you will find it very easy to register it. You cannot use phone without registering. We have all been to other cities, other countries. There's no way you won't have SIM. Many people, I can agree that many people have 3 or 4 lines and they are unused. So when you now decide to register, if you decide to register only the 2 is using, that could have been another reason that make it be challenging. But I think it's a good direction for people to register their SIM before they can use it. There are other things that we consider to that thing. Another thing is that purchasing power is an issue now. I don't think they are factoring purchasing power to the level at which people also try to use telecoms.
Well, from what you have said, you're saying that the intentions were right, but maybe the timing was not as right. But what can we learn looking at future policy implementation processes? What lessons should be learned, to ensure that this situations like a situation like what we just saw doesn't reoccur?
Well, I just think that there should be much more education on the part of the entity, because you recall that most people that actually register without their SIM, without having NIM, were sanctioned. I can tell one of my line also have that issue, and I just quickly go back to make sure that I register. So that is not the issue, but we have other sundry issues that we need to address that's actually affecting the operationalization of this sector. And one of them is poor electricity. You recall that this sector also suffer a lot of things, because if you go to any of their how do I call mass, they must continuously powering that mass, and you can only power mass with electricity, or you look for alternative source of energy. I can tell you, most of them have automatic generator that's diesel, and they have to work with it 247. That cost them a lot. I can also tell you, if there's any sector we need to appreciate that have not need to increase their services or the prices of their services, I think it's telecos, and they have done quite well. So the other thing is that the issue of a limited optic fiber. You have to lay all these fiber optics to really increase your broadband. So I think it's what it can also take charge of, to do it so that it will enhance the power and it will support more. So that's just what I think. So, and we still have insufficient what we call backhaul capacity. That is not technical to them, but it's an issue that the federal government must also involve to make sure they solve it. So I think that's one of the challenges they actually have. And for me, that sector is the backbone of the economy. Remember, there is no bank as of now who can work without telecos, because if you want to do USSD, you telecos. If you want to transfer telecos, if you want to do anything financial, you must go to telecos. So it's something we must take cognizance and invest enough into it. The investment can come even in 3 ways. Federal government must invest in it, state government must invest in it, and ultimately the operation, the operators itself, which we have 4 major, they also need to invest in it very well. Recently we have we used to have some other network that work with range. We are not seeing it again. And I also noticed that there was a licensing category the other time. I've not seen those ones also come up for operation. So I think there is need for major investment in that. But the major thing is broadband must be invest in seriously. So we can achieve that 70% target by 2026, I think.
Emphasized on the importance for infrastructure building. and you've called on federal government, state government, local government. But at the end of the day, the government cannot do everything, and that brings up conversations around having the right partnerships between the government and the private sector. So moving forward, what would you say regarding that? What sort of environment or a business environment would you call for to ensure that there is that room for deliberation between the government and the private sector, and there is that room for collaboration between both sides? We seem to have lost Dr. Iiyas, but we have been speaking regarding the recently released broadband penetration report by the NCC. I believe we have Dr. Iiyas back with us on the program. Doctor, I would like to hear, your thoughts on having the right collaboration in place. Not just the government alone, can handle the major project of ensuring that the broadband penetration reaches the nook and crannies of Nigeria. It is important that we also, amplify conversations around the right collaboration between the government and the private sector. So I'd like for you to speak regarding that, ensuring that there is that right environment and that there is the need for a dialogue between both sides.
Right. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is the issue of taxation. If you look at it very well, I think the telecoms suffer a double taxation compared to any other company in Nigeria, because the local government will collect from them, the state will collect from them, and also will collect from them. I think the new tax reform, that has been addressed, that only the federal government will collect and will bring back to the state. Then another thing is about our environment. We have very hostile environment now, and it's very, because if you want to invest in broadband, you have to hire people that will go about to do to lay the optic fibers. But if the environment is hostile, it becomes a serious problem. I can tell you most areas now have that challenges. Having tested the federal government, still see the environment, saying that they are tilting their environment, or they should give them their own or people in the community want to collect from these people that want to invest. So we must start to sensitize our people and tell them the importance of laying all the fiber. Check other even countries in West Africa. They have achieved more broadband penetration compared to Nigeria. And I must tell you, that's the bane of our development, if I may say. Because if we don't have effective network, it's a serious issue. So I think the Minister for Communication and Digital Economy also need to do more to make sure they encourage, and we also need new entrants. We want to go beyond these four major investors. Let other people come into that sector, so there will be a robust competition. So that it won't become a cartel. Paying for them to sit down and determine what happens to our network services.
And you did say something, and I'll just continue with that point. Talking about how foreign investors will view Nigeria in terms of how Nigeria is in the eye of foreign investors, as regarding whether or not Nigeria is a good investment destination. What sort of message does numbers like this, data like this, send to foreign investors or potential foreign investors?
Right. Well, the fact is that a sincere investor will come and also join us in investing in our community when they can find it better. But we need to lay the background. And what is the common background? Is the laying of the infrastructure. If you have issues with infrastructure, no investors will want to come in. You'll be thinking of the level of investment they're going to go in. And the common things that should be like what should have been solved, which is electricity. Electricity has to be there, that that 247 is available for them to do what they want to do. Then in terms of optic fiber, I think this is a major thing that government should take on. Minister for Communication and Digital Economy, to invest more Indeed, and I'm sure it's someone who understood this sector very well. He has been in private sector, trying to make things happen. Now he has the power. He's starting to responsibility. They should invest more in optic fiber. If it's penetrated to Nigerians, I assure you, it will boost our economy. You will not just look at content creation only. You need a good network, and people in the village also want to partake in it. So we need to invest more in that. The more we invest, the more we also benefit.
And part of the target in the National Broadband Plan for 2020 to 2025 is that Nigeria is expected to hit the target of 70% broadband penetration by the year 2025. How would you say we are, currently in our efforts towards reaching that target? And what immediate low-hanging fruit areas should we, take very seriously, if at all, we want to indeed hit the target by next year?
Right. Well, the low-hanging fruit that I would say is that I think for me, I don't think it's possible that between now and 2025 is next 3 months or next 2 months, if I may say, and for you to now say you achieve 41%, that you are even going back up to 70%. I see it as a tall order, except there is a very, very deliberate effort to achieve that. However, I must also bring this to your knowledge that are you aware that our purchasing power is also affected? Because most people that are supposed to be on our smartphone now are on what we call phone that are not smart, simply because of the purchasing power. To buy a phone in Nigeria now that's going to be smartphone, you can't spend less 100,000, and that's why we have this major issue. That's why is it up to date? There is no phone that is being manufactured in Nigeria. These are the problems. If we have about 100 million Nigerians on using a smartphone, and there is no any single company that either complete or produce the phone, it's a serious issue. So these are the things, but the more we have its affordability, and you also recall that the present state of the economy is also encouraging people to be able to buy such a phone that are smart. Because if you cannot afford it, the major thing you think is just let me make a call and go. So we must also put everything in consideration in terms of purchasing power of people, in terms of the infrastructure availability by the federal government, and in terms of cooperation, even from the major stakeholders, which is the operators, the environment, easy for everyone to come together to actually make sure that we increase the penetration of broadband.
Well said, Doctor. You have spoken to, the current inflationary pressures and how that has affected the affordability of smartphones. But I will also like for us to continue on that, looking at the digital divide in rural areas, comparing or juxtaposing the digital affordability, digital accessibility between urban and rural areas. How wide is that gap, from your own point of view? And do you think there is an approach, or is the National Broadband Penetration Plan a suitable approach towards bridging that gap that currently does exist?
Right. If you go to most countries, especially Western country, most of them don't subscribe to the cable network, because most of them will have to use the internet to check whatever they're checking. It's definitely even in Abuja, whereby optic fiber is laid, you just have to pay a token, then they'll give you the password to it, and you can easily see it. So you may not have reason to even subscribe until you think through that level. We will know the need for us for us to actually invest more. I recall during the administration of El-Rufai, he actually earmarked some area whereby whenever you are there, you have free internet. I also want to remind us about the present governor of Edo, Obaseki. You make sure that everywhere in the state have optic fiber and internet penetration, whereby they can look at access. If I look at it, it's not a serious thing, but in the long run, it will help the economy of the states. I can tell you, to even afford the data now with this present economic challenge is an issue. So for us to benefit this internet broadband penetration, there must be investment from the federal government and also investment from the operators, the four major operators among others.
Well explained. But seeing that currently in the business and trade space, it's not new to see, people have online digital stores, since the pandemic, that is the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a mass exodus of businesses, away from walk-in stores to online stores. And that goes to, raise concerns around how businesses that are online have to grapple with communication or grapple with running their business on a day-to-day basis with concerns around internet penetration and the likes. But I'd like for you to speak regarding, the economic impact of this report now, speaking about the drop in internet penetration to 41.5% from what we have seen in the previous month. How will this impact on businesses, micro, small and medium enterprises, which are the bedrock of the Nigerian economy?
Right. On average, I must tell you this, that my own company, we expend nothing less than 500,000 naira every month. And it's based on the online, internet, and all those things. For you to know how significant we need to have broadband and a 4G. When we say 4G, real 4G, not less than 5G, because we said 5G is there, but 4G that we're having, is it actually 4G? These are the questions. So the impact on small businesses cannot be overemphasized because majority of small businesses have presence online. And through this online, they can do the marketing, they can do the service, they can do a lot of things. So if we continue to decline as things now, it's a potential danger for the Nigerian economy. And that's why government must make sure that they provide infrastructure that will give Nigerians affordable internet usage so that we can actually afford it and we can also access as well.
You have raised very valid concerns around affordability and accessibility. But looking at the global economy now, with the world moving, as a global village, with space and time constraints being limited, do you see this having future negative effects on Nigeria, seeing that we just might be taking our time or moving slowly with the tides?
Right. Well, if you ask me, you know that the world economy, we won't start taking a competitive advantage. Now, if we are not taking a competitive advantage, we may become something grand. I know with the global now, someone in London can advertise school in London, in Nigeria, right? And even someone who has it in Nigeria may not have the opportunity to actually advertise because it is much cheaper to access internet abroad compared to even in your country. So these are the things that we must be very careful about. If not, it would be a disadvantage to Nigeria. This global community will be a disadvantage to Nigeria because everybody can now pitch whatever they want on our soil. And that's why we also want regulation from even NITSDA now. NITSDA needs to come up with a regulation whereby if you launch anything on the internet, it will be what we agree and what we don't agree is the decision. You recall that if you go to a country like in China, like Dubai, there's some package we use here that is not allowed. You can't even make video call and what have you in some places. It's because they want homegrown technology to. So if we don't start looking at how we can give advantage to our own Nigeria services, Nigeria products, Nigeria goods, we may have to trade off that for a global community, and it will not allow our infant industry.
And just before we go, you have spoken towards, short-term priorities to, close that gap. But I'd like for you to speak more on the longer term. What should be our major long-term priorities as a nation and as people, who would want to move with the times, globally speaking?
Right. The first thing I will encourage is that this Minister for Digital Economy must make sure it provides enabling environment. And beyond enabling environment, it must provide infrastructure. There must be a structured way that Nigerians and investors can see on how to increase our broadband penetration and laying of optic fiber. I remember most of those networks have done what they can do. But remember, as a network, they will be considering where their profit lies. Meanwhile, if you are considering where your profit lies, you should be looking at where there is purchasing power, where there is more population, and where there is low purchasing power and less population will be suffering. So this is where government needs to come and make sure that everywhere in Nigeria has optic fiber is being laid, and also there is internet penetration. So I think it's very important to see it as an economic priority beyond social priority. It's an economic priority that we must invest in to develop our Nigeria economy.
Investment in Nigeria's broadband area should be made a priority. Thank you very much, Dr. Aliyu iIiyas, who is an economic analyst, and he has spoken extensively on the recently released report by the NCC on Nigeria's broadband penetration. Thank you, Doctor, for all the insights that you have shared with us on today's edition of the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all that we will be taking today, but keep the conversation going across all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and of course on X, that is formerly Twitter. We will be there to, respond to your comments or answer your questions regarding the discuss for today. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.